Okay, good evening and welcome to the Lopatcong Township Planning Board meeting of September 2016. This time I will invite you to join us in a silent moment of prayer, followed immediately by the oath of allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'm required to state that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided indicating the time and place of the meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by advertising a notice in the Star Gazette and the Express Times and by posting a copy on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Beth, may I have a roll call, please?
Members Fox.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Chesky.
Here.
Fryer.
Here.
Wolf. Mayor McKay.
Here.
Vice Chairman Burrell.
Here.
Karen Van Vliet.
Here.
And Bob Taylor.
Here. We have a quorum, right? Kick the meeting off here with old business. The first order of business would be approve the minutes of April 27th and June 2nd, 2016. I'll ask now if everybody has received a copy of those minutes, and are there any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none, those minutes will stand as published. At this time, I would like to, without objection, suspend the old business on the Highlands and Cove action. We'll do that and move on to new business if there's no objection, and we'll hear the application for coordinated health major site plan application. Without objection, would you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
For the record, my name is Mark Peck. I'm an attorney with the 403 Steinhardt & Fader law firm, and it's a pleasure being before you all again. I'm here on behalf of Filter Properties Group. This is for the Coordinated Health Phase 2. Properties located in Lot 5 and Block 85, 222 Red School Lane. It's at the intersection of Red School Lane and Baltimore Street. You're probably familiar with Phase 1. That's been up and running. We got approval for that about 2 years ago. So now Phase 2 is for a second building, an ambulatory surgery center. We're here tonight strictly for purposes of completeness. And before I go any further, I do recognize that we have not yet obtained our Highlands consistency review, so we're aware that we're not going to be deemed complete tonight, but hopefully we can at least get through some of our waiver requests. And we've reviewed Mr. Ritter's review letter of September 20th and Mr. Sturbitz's letter of September 22nd. And we were also fortunate to meet with Mr. Sturbitz, with Mr. Ritter on the phone on Monday to go through some of the technical aspects of the plan and the completeness reports. So hopefully we can get through, at least some of this stuff, so we have a clean application, and we can be very efficient when we appear before you again. And we are hoping that after tonight we can appear in October, assuming we have that Highlands consistency determination in hand, and get formally deemed complete, and also move on to a substantive hearing in October as well. But with that said, and whatever the board's preference is, if you just want to go through either Mr. Sturbitz's or Mr. Ritter's letters in turn, and we can identify the comments and, how we either have complied since those letters have come out, or how we intend to comply, and where we are looking for waivers. I do have Mr. John Colgrandi from Pinoni Associates, as well as Christo Santos and Mike Campion on behalf of the applicants, who can answer any questions you may have.
I think that would be the best way to proceed. So.
Great.
Paul, would you start down with your letter?
Yeah. As the board is aware, I issued a September 22nd letter specifically on completeness, which is the administrative phase of the application process. On pages 3 and 4 of 5 of the letter, that's really the meat of the letter. It goes through the deficiencies that I found in reviewing the application. as well as the waivers that have been requested by the applicant. I would note that a number of the deficiencies have been addressed since this letter was issued. I'll point them out as we go through that tonight. Under the preliminary major site plan details checklist on page 3, in the middle of page 3, comment 1, list of deficiencies. 1A we already talked about, that's the Highlands Council consistency determination letter. That's a deficiency. The applicant will need to provide that. And 1B, the sanitary sewer flow data. We need to understand what the sanitary sewer flows are going to be from this new building. The applicant actually had requested during the phase 1 project a waiver of that particular item, and the board rejected it. The board wanted to see that particular item addressed. So the applicant's engineer will just have to submit a letter in indicating what the flows are going to be for this building, this new building on the site, just so you have that information. So 1B is also a deficiency. 1C, it just has to do with the fact that the checklist requires site plans unless waived by the board to depict features within 100 feet of the site. There's some features that are not depicted on the plan. I don't have a problem with waiving that. I think we waived this particular item the last time. 1D has been addressed. We now have architectural plans. And 1E is a deficiency. I just want to see a note in the plan that there's no wetlands on any of the site. So under the preliminary major site plan application, 1A, 1B, and 1C, 1A, 1B, and 1E are your deficiencies. 1C is a waiver that I'm supporting. 1D has been addressed. Under comment 2, under the preliminary, there were 2 waiver requests. They're both related to utility capacity information. The applicant has requested waivers for both of those particular items. This site is fully served by underground utilities, electric, gas, water, sewer at this point. I'm not aware of any capacity problems with the sewer. Obviously, we do want to know what the flows will be from the new building. So I do not have an objection to the waivers requested under 2A, the preliminary site plan. Moving on to the final site plan, detailed checklist on page 4. Items 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D have been addressed by the applicant. With respect to 1A, we received an updated page out of the application form with the applicant's signature. And then 1B and 1C were addressed through the submission of the architectural plans. And then 1D, Mr. Peck had issued an email to the board today indicating the licensed architect of record for the architectural plans. Regarding 1E, and Mr. Peck can verify this, it's my understanding from my meeting with him on Monday that there are no proposed site identification signs as part of this package. They may seek those signs, and they would do so under a separate application, and that was what was done in the phase 1 project in separately.
And that's correct.
So 1E should be waived as a result of that. 1F, they're requesting a temporary waiver for the proposed storm sewer drainage profiles. I don't have a problem with that. That can be done as a condition of approval. 1G, they're requesting a temporary waiver for the submission of a quantity estimate. And that's something that's typically waived. There's no sense in doing it because there's going to be various changes along the way. And the applicant is just going to have to redo that work. So that can just be made a condition of approval. And 1H is the same deficiency as 1E was under the preliminary. They'll have to add a note on the plans for the absence of presence of wetlands. So just going through the scorecard here, 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D have been addressed. 1E, 1F, and 1G, I'm recommending waivers, and then 1H is also a deficiency will have to be addressed. And under 2, there were waivers requested. One had to do with utilities again. One had to do with fire zones. 2A, again, because the site is served by utilities, I don't have a problem with the waiver on that particular issue. 2B, I have a problem with. They haven't established the fire zones around the building. And that was one of the things that was discussed on Monday during our technical review meeting. And the applicant will be submitting revised plans before the next meeting, and those are the plans that the board is going to focus on. We're going to write a report on, both George and I, in the next meeting. So I would reject the waiver request in 2B and request that be addressed as part of the reviews. So, so I've outlined the waivers I think the board should approve, in my opinion. I've outlined what I think is still deficient, and you should deem the application to be incomplete for those particular deficiencies, but approve the waivers.
Good, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing, before going back to the sewer, I'm relying on my memory. I think there was a question about the size of the line they were tying into as well. So on the way it was shown, it's two different things, first half, time around.
That was verified under the phase one plan, but that's a good point. That size has not been shown. It should be added by Mr. Cole Brandeis.
Yeah, and then in his little letter analysis, I could address that.
Very great. Yes, yes.
You're reading off this document, right?
Yes.
Who has that document? I don't have it.
It was sent to us.
I was on, in my office for a while, so yeah.
It came through email a couple days ago. No, no, it was sent on.
It's not in your packet.
Yeah, I had issued it on Thursday, unbeknownst to me. I had issued that to Anthony, to Gary, and George. Unbeknownst to me, that was away. So they asked me on Monday to forward it on, but I was out of the office and by the time I got together with that was back in the office. She asked me to email it out on Monday, and I was out of the office. I think what the fix is moving forward is I want to get all your email addresses. I'll just create a user group, and I will just email it directly to all the board members when I complete a report in the future.
Okay, it's here.
I can email it. I mean,
Oh, that's cool, but Paul just read all these items. You don't have it, I don't have it.
well, it's
Yes, I email.
So anyway, I need to send it out to all the board, everybody. So I'll take responsibility, and I'll make sure I get all your email addresses. Email it out at the same time I'm sending it to the other consultants working for the board.
So for the utilities, you're okay with bringing that waiver to the year where the utility starts in phase one? Don't think it's an issue to get letters from utility companies saying that they can support phase two?
Yeah, there's utilities there that go in phase one, that the utility companies, it's in their service area. They provide service. They're already committed to provide service.
Okay.
Many of the board members here weren't here when we heard the first part of the application. The first part of it, the original application when it came in consisted of these two buildings. The original building that was there, that was the old chemical company, or something like that. And they were going to add this new section. I guess some difficulties about having permission from the state.
Phase two was presented 2 years ago as a preliminary. In the future, we're also going to do this, and so
Correct.
service people provided, knowing that there's going to be future growth.
That's my understanding, that the utility load was an overall.
Basically, it was sized for that, and the new sewer line going at that time.
It was covered back.
It was covered back under that approval, so.
Mr.
Basically,
Chairman,
that's what we're going.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Just one last thing, I'm in agreement with Mr. Peck about his request to, in addition to doing completeness at the next meeting on October 26th, if it is in fact complete, commencing into a hearing that night. I think we can do that. I don't think these items are very onerous to do, and the Highlands Council typically issues their consistency determination in a few weeks after.
So you'll notice. Yes, I will, thank you.
So if Highlands doesn't get it in time and we have to push it back a month, we need the Highlands to.
Yeah, then we're selling.
We can't
You should
proceed.
get complete.
It's, we're noticing at our own risk, basically.
This happened the last time, actually, and they were able to come through after the completeness hearing with the letter. We were able to proceed under the same scenario, so confident that they'll be able to do that again.
Unless the board feels that it needs testimony or comment from Mr. Peck regarding the waivers that have been recommended by Paul, I would suggest that someone make a motion to grant the waivers as more specifically identified by our engineer and in his report of September 22.
So do you want to have any objections? I'll entertain a motion. to grant the waiver.
Waivers conflict, George, with your letter?
I can go, my letters do not deal with completeness. They deal with the variances and waivers he will require as part of this application.
Very good. Okay.
These are submission waivers.
Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, then I'll make a motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Beth, roll call, please.
Yes. Members Fox,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Chesky.
Yes.
Pryor,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Mayor McKay,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Darrell,
Yes.
Chairman Van Lee,
Yes.
and alternate Martin.
Yes. Are you pressing the board for waivers on any of the items that Mr. Servants indicates he wants to be submitted at this point?
No, we met with Paul, and I think we're all in agreement with what we need to do and what we need to present to the board for the application.
I think that's a wise choice.
Usually. Not my first rodeo here.
George, you want to review your?
Yes, just as a quick review.
Just hold on a second, why don't we just have a motion to deem the application incomplete, and then George can deal with, unless you want to wait for George. So-
No. All right, at this point, since we don't have the Highlands letter of approval, we're going to have to keep it incomplete, so I'll call for a motion on that.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Roll call, Mark.
Okay. Members Fox,
Yeah.
Johnson,
Yes.
Chesky. Yes. Pryor.
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Mayor McKay,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Darrell, Chairman Van Lee.
Yes.
Yes.
George, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. Essentially, from our standpoint, based on the plans that have been submitted to date, the application coming before you at the next meeting will involve 3 C variances. The first variance being parking in the front yard. There'll be an issue there that you'll have to review. The height of the retaining walls in the front yard is also a variance. And also, and I could not recall when I wrote my review, there's a little shed that is on the property line that encroaches, and I could not remember if that was one of the neighbor's sheds that was built on your property or if it was a shed that you dealt with.
No, I had to go back, George, and look at my notes. That was actually, that is a coordinated health shed
Okay.
that they were going to use to store like maintenance gear, like
Yeah.
lawn care equipment and stuff. But I can represent that shed is going to be removed.
Okay.
So that's off the
That'll
table.
go away.
And with the parking, as Mr. Sturbins indicated, we are taking another look at the plans as a consequence of our meeting on Monday. So parking, we may or may not be looking for a variance.
No,
It all-
that's fine.
it all
And
depends.
the only other issue that I wanted to make sure I understood is you handed out architectural plans tonight that has extensive signage shown on it.
We can
You
disregard that.
you are withdrawing the signs from this application. In other words, I'm not supposed to review them for conformance or,
That's correct.
okay, that's fine. I assume then that there's no signage in this package.
Anything further?
No, thank you very much for your time. And
Well, I had reviewed George's letter, and I did have some questions. First off, and I don't know which words come from you and which come from George, but there's a statement that there was a gravel path that led to a detention basin, and it didn't sound like that was part of the improvements. Do you need access to the detention basin, and will there be in the proposed plan?
I would ask Mr. Colagrande or Mr. Campion to address that. Did you hear the question? Gravel
We're
path.
kind of getting into a little bit of an area here where it should be
More.
held at the meeting when we're having a formal
Okay, then
application,
when you come
just so.
back, it's a little confusing to me about gravel path to the detention basin.
Okay.
Only because they haven't noticed the public
Public, yeah, there's
Isn't
some
here.
testimony given here about
hearing
that.
hasn't started, just could get messy.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mr. Colagrande will, assuming we are deemed complete, Mr. Colagrande will walk through every aspect of the site plan and answer
All right.
any questions you have.
Then also the map on the number of trees.
Yes, while we're on that subject, one thing that will come up during the hearing, it has nothing really to do with what's going on now, is that if you'll recall back on phase 1, several of the neighbors to the rear of the property didn't want any landscaping.
We wanted the
buffers.
unimpeded view
Unimpeded
to
view.
Merrill Creek.
Obviously, as part of this plan, and it may change as a result of the studies you're doing on parking, but you've shown additional parking right in front of this stretch of property. Your landscape plan shows a buffer currently, which is fine. I think what we're going to do is go to the hearing and see if the neighbors, given the fact they've now had a chance to live with you, and also now that you're putting parking closer to them, to see if they're still interested in not having a buffer or having one. So I would leave them on the plans, but that's something we may later exclude if the neighbors still want it open.
Right, and I know Coordinated Health wants to remain a good neighbor, so I'm sure that anything,
Yeah,
reasonable that can accommodate the neighbors, we'll be happy to.
I'm just saying we'll wait for the neighbors to voice their opinion on that little stretch of wall.
As far as this gravel path of the detention basin, that was put in as part of phase one. It is getting, some of it's getting intersected by the new roadway, the section of the roadway is supposed to be taken out.
Right, and I didn't, and sort of that segment coming.
So there's still a remnant of it, so that maintenance vehicles can get into the basin and maintain the basin.
All right, so when you asked us if you have any comments, you commented.
Well, as far as where we went this way, but this is part, I didn't know what your comments were, and I didn't want to shut you off. But this is getting into a little more of a technical. Exactly. Other than that,
Very good.
thank you very much for your presentation.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and
See you in
we'll
October.
see you in 4 weeks.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we go into the old business, regarding the submissions, would it be possible to add that a electronic PDF version of their plans be submitted as well? Very easy for consulting firms or engineering firms to create a PDF set. In fact, they usually do it anyway. That way, the first time I'm seeing a set of plans, which are as big as this table, I have a PDF set in my computer I can browse through. So I think we should just add onto the requirements of the commission that they do an electronic PDF version of plan sets.
Question, I don't know if that's,
That's an ordinance.
is it an ordinance, would that have an ordinance? Because it's not part of our
Checklist.
checklist, and not everyone would be able to have the capability of doing that.
Everybody submitted a plan pretty much done.
I know they should do it, but what about us?
I'd be looking at plans on a screen this big, and they're worthless to me, so.
But, although I would say plans that are as big as this table are worthless to me. They're just too big.
You know, Eric, that could, we would have, and
Yeah.
then, you send the person to have it.
I may have it, I may have scanned it already, so I could, I believe we have, I could always send it to you as a courtesy.
You have a scanner of this?
Yeah. They got lots of toys in the office.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hope to see you in October. We're going to finish with new business. We're going to unsuspend old business and go into the Highlands and co-op actions, the timetable and the remaining actions we have going, which is George's prerogative.
She's on.
Good night.
Okay, George.
Basically, this is to update the board on our progress with the Highlands Plan conformance, particularly as it relates to the Highlands Center and the ordinances that are going to be coming out of that. Tonight, just to sort of keep you abreast where we are, I laid a drawing with all your packages. This happens to be a printout of the build-out analysis that we had to do for the Highlands in terms of their use. And what it was really trying to identify all the vacant parcels in town that were available assigning acreages to them and basically sending it up to them so that they have a new base of what's still out there possible to be built. That analysis is now complete, and the package was sent to the Highlands a couple of days ago for their review. They may come back with a few questions or not. The intent of this is that they're supposed to now apply their analysis to this to determine what the maximum build-out capabilities are for the town. We do not do that. We supply them with the database. But I did want to just give it to you. It tends to, what it really does show you is approximately the number of open parcels that are still here or parcels that are pending development. And to give you a little bit of an idea, you know, there's about 134 parcels in town, and it totals out to about 919 acres of relatively undeveloped ground in town. I give it to you really more just to give you a feel for where the undeveloped parcels are, but also let you know that that's been submitted up to the Highlands, and we're waiting if they have any comments on that. More importantly, we've moved on to the Highlands Center work in terms of trying to come up with recommendations for the Highlands Center ordinances and the development. To date, we've undertaken a various land use studies. If you remember it, it's been a long time ago. Back in July, we submitted a letter to you that sort of outlined the work products that we have to work on as part of our Highlands. Well, actually, it's a contract with the Highlands to develop various land planning elements for them. And we're in that package. There was an outline of the pending programs that we had to do. We're currently in what is called, in our case, Texas Task 16, which is really the Highlands Center Designation Planning Study. What that involves is going out throughout the entire Highlands Center and doing a new land use map, looking at the sewer and water situations as they exist today, what's being served, looking at the existing zoning, and mapping the environmental restraints in that area, and then making a series of recommendations as to what we think there might be amendments to the township zoning ordinance, both in the ROM district, which we've looked at previously, the commercial districts and the residential districts, all within the Highlands Center. That work is underway. We've started to produce maps. I have 3 or 4 of them here. I didn't hand out copies to everyone. I'm glad to send it around. You can take a look at sort of what types of information we're collecting. They're not finished yet. There's still verification that has to be done on some things, but you can just sort of shoot that around and take a quick look. That process, along with coming back to the board with recommendations on, for your consideration, of potential zoning changes. In other words, whether you'd like to do it, not do it, whether you think we're on base or off base. We should have a package of that put together for the next planning board meeting for your discussion. Out of that meeting should come a list of recommendations for zoning changes that we will forward to the Highlands for their consideration and remarks. After we get their comments back, we will then move into a phase of actually writing the proposed ordinances and changes that have to be done. So hopefully by the next meeting, well, it will be, but it's not hopefully, by the next meeting, we should have a series of recommendations available for your consideration as to how we think the ordinances might be tweaked to bring us into conformance with the Highlands or correct deficiencies that we think just need correcting. So that's where we are in the process. And so I would assume that at the next meeting or the next available meeting, we should be able to review that. I'll get the stuff up to the board ahead of time so that you can look at the recommendations, think about them a little bit before we have the meeting. And hopefully at that meeting, be able to come to some conclusions as to where we'd like to go with the stuff in these different areas. So that's where we're at in the process. So the next meeting, we should be able to get into the thick of it in terms of zoning issues. And I'm just sending the maps around. Those are a few we're working on. There's a few more we're going to do. To give you some of the ideas that we're thinking about is that in your small lot residential districts right now, there appears to be a lot of variances generated because the standards that were established at some time in the past don't really match the lot sizes. In other words, if somebody wants to do an addition to their house or add something, they're always in front of the Board of Adjustment because they're always encroaching a side yard or rear yard. And some of those side yards and rear yards seem quite large for the size of the lots. So what we're looking at is going to make for your consideration some recommendations on probably modifying those side yards to make it a little easier for the homeowners to actually make improvements to their property and not trigger a full variance review. But it's something for you to consider, so we'll have some recommendations on that. Of course, we'll have the recommendations for the RLM zone, what we're going to do there, what we think we can do, and we may also have some additional recommendations on the commercial districts that fall within the center designation. So that's where we're headed.
Will we be able to get this in next meeting, or do we do the application first and then save that report to afterwards? We got the application next meeting, right?
The application for the Highlands?
No, for the coordinated.
They'll probably take up the whole meeting.
So we would put them.
We have a lot of,
Yeah, I think that
through this.
my part of this may demand at least an hour and a half, 2 hours of discussion. I don't see that just being a 15-minute, here's what I'm going to do, you're all going to nod and say yes, and I'll go home. I don't think that'll be the case.
Mr. Chairman, I did have a question for George. And George, you're going to have to refresh my memory here. We're doing this under a grant, and you had a proposal with the number of tasks, but wasn't there, we were delayed because we had to wait for the Highlands to complete some of their work first?
We've been discussing where they are in various master plan revisions, things that they're thinking about. The bottom line is there doesn't seem to be much progress on any of that. In talking to them, they basically said, look, go ahead, do your thing, send them up here, we'll look at it, and we'll discuss it. If we agree with it, fine. If we have some questions, but just do it. Don't wait for us because they're not getting there very fast. Let's put it that way.
Right, because you've been waiting for years.
Well, it's been a long time.
They've been in the process of doing their part.
Yes, and they basically come back and said, look, just move, do your thing. We'll review it and give you comments. Just proceed.
There's a chart in your package here that you can take a look at of where we're at. The original one, we had 7 steps we had to take.
Yeah, I don't know how the printing came out. We had listed all the steps we had finished and what was to remain, but I noticed on the copy I was handed, the steps we finished were put in a type that didn't print. So you have a blank sheet essentially where what we did. But yes, we've moved through multiple steps already to get to this point.
We're almost at the point of being full acceptance into the Highlands Council program.
Yes.
And we got short-circuited when COA collapsed in the housing. We came back and wanted housing information.
Yeah.
Then they hit their 5-year peak. They have to review their regional master plan for us to come into conformance with it. So,
yeah, the COA issue is still there. It'll continue to be there for quite a while yet. I don't think we're very close to having a settlement on that issue, really.
But they're also providing some grant money for us to do this.
They also have money in there for our COA compliance. As long as we have a program, they have additional money in to do that, to amend the housing element of their share.
Chairman, if I may have one more question, George. We have an approved wastewater management plan, correct?
Yes.
And we're amending that as part of this?
No, not the wastewater, not the official wastewater management plan. No.
Okay.
No,
I think we're one of 2 towns in Warren County that have approved this plan.
Yeah. The fact you have an approved plan and the gallonage and all that will be in the reports, but we don't intend to amend your wastewater management.
Well, I ask because that's a whole other process.
Separate process, yeah.
I don't think they're even looking at anybody else.
We're changing the regulations now. Anybody that wants to make changes, we're telling everybody to wait till the new regulations are implemented. The unfortunate thing is it's taking a year and a day. There's a lot of towns that just hanging out there. I have another town that wants to do some changes.
Which regs are you talking about, Paul? The wastewater management planning?
Yeah, water quality regs.
Open questions? George, anything?
The only question I have, George, is, this is just the center, right? It says Highlands, Highlands Center.
Center
What
designation.
is the other part of the county?
Well, this study deals with the Highlands Center, which is the bulk of the township, but it deals only with the Highlands Center. These reviews are broken into pieces. The other part of the town is also another package that we're working on. But this will focus, and quite frankly, it'll hit the main areas. It'll hit your RLM district, your primary commercial districts, and most of your residential. This is really the guts of the next study, let's say. And then the remaining ordinance package will deal with the periphery areas that are not in that area. But this will get 90% of the issues.
One of the things, I think, up by Belvedere, Bellevue Road, there's a major commercial district there, where the fair is, the Thomas Fair.
Oh, the industrial district.
Yeah, that is coming out of that plan, and then that is, I think we have two really big commercial industrial zone spaces, and one's up there, and one is by the strike.
Yeah, I think that one's outside of the district, it's outside of the center district, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll still be addressed overall, but I'm just saying it's not part of that. That doesn't fall within this.
You'd be able to email a copy of that out. Could you email that out to everybody?
Oh, sure, I have no problem with that at all. They're not complete. I was reluctant, because if you look at those and you say to yourself, I know certain lots have sewer, and they don't show there. This has been all collected from the sewer authority, the water authority, and tax map data, but their data isn't current either. So we're trying to get a match so we get them up to date. There's a few properties that are obviously going to be sewered, have water, but they don't appear in any of the records yet. So we're just updating. But I have no trouble. I can send you an email of all that stuff. And if you'd like, I can do, do I have everybody's email address? I'll just do a package to everybody.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, just follow up real quick. Next month's agenda, there's going to be two items, but the second one, which is talking George about his, will be time committed. But we're going to put both items on the agenda, correct? I don't want to go through another email back and forth, well, this is on the agenda, this is not, you're not allowed to put this on. Let's talk about it right now. Can you get it on there, time permitted?
I don't think if we're gonna go have the full discussion, it's gonna require an hour and a half, 2 hour discussion. I don't think it's gonna be
Time permitted, we put it on the agenda, time permitted. If you don't have 2 hours left after the application hearing, then we won't do it, but it's, can we plan on it?
I'm reluctant to do that because that's a lot that might be interested in seeing what's going on. We don't get more ordinances as we see. Without having that, giving that notification and then just cutting it off there, we're not going to know that till later in the evening how it's going to come out. So I'd rather have it scheduled. We'll have our own meeting. We'll probably be past the coordinated help. Got to give it at least an hour, hour and a half, and then we have some of the people that came in that we might have some of the neighbors and audience participation. Just like we have a regular meeting, once the architect testifies, and it's open to audiences to question them down the line. I have no idea how else. This is going to require a full-blown meeting. I think we should schedule a full-blown meeting, let's just stick it in there and say, people come out, and then we find out at 9:30 that we're going to go another hour with their application. people know we're not gonna listen.
You're talking about having a special meeting just for George's items.
We could have a special meeting, whether it's gonna be required or not. I mean, coming up to looking at November for that, we'll have a special meeting and then cancel the regular meeting. What's the sense of it? We're trying to coordinate everybody to come in and time schedules for that. I just didn't have it for the regular meeting.
It might be, it's total strategy, Mr. Chairman, is, November meeting, is November 23rd. December meeting, is the Christmas, everybody worship the agenda item. Should be an item on the agenda for that, to discuss the meeting schedule for the balance of the year. And looking at some other dates in there, and one of them is targeted to George's presentation. And then we'll see if any other applications are filed. There may not be anything else filed, so we get done with coordinated help, and then there'll be plenty of time for the November meeting, whatever it is.
This all is predicated on the fact that it's going to make it into the meeting.
Right.
So.
Well, I do see one advantage of putting it on there as a backup, because if they don't have their Highlands letter, then we put them for nothing.
You want to put it on there?
I mean, I understand the concern with bringing
Let's put
public
it on.
out that may not need to, but depending on when you get notice that they've received the Highlands letter.
Yeah.
You know, if we're putting out next month's agenda in a couple of weeks prior to the meeting, and they still don't have the Highlands letter, then I would definitely expect to see the ROM on there, the discussion on there. If they're not,
This is just what we're going to be submitting at that point to the Highlands. This is not going to be a quick operation.
right, but when Beth is doing the agenda in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, if the developers don't have their Highlands letter, then the ROM discussion would go on the
If
agenda.
we have them coming in on the agenda and they have their Highlands letter, we can set the agenda 2 or 3 days before we're going to have it. Just saying we do that. That's why I've always been objecting to setting an agenda a month ahead of time. Things change rapidly. If they do get there, then we'll be dedicating the October meeting basically before that situation.
And my comment is,
If
if
they're
they don't have
not on
the
there, you can set the agenda up for a couple of days before. So,
I think there's a 90% chance that they have a letter. They're very hungry right now. They have their materials into the Highlands.
That's right.
Does it make sense to talk about the last 2 meetings, but it's just not happening on the normal schedule? You said the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, like before Thanksgiving, not very practical. The December meeting, I don't know, a day or two away from Christmas, probably.
last year.
I would vote not to.
Thanksgiving one.
Yeah, you know, that, I think there was a reason for that. I think it have to do with, Opus, yeah.
Yeah. We had the office.
We had the
The Piazza was coming in, for,
I don't think we would have done that one way.
as a whole, over the schedule. But if we're down at the end and they know we're not coming in, that is the balance discussion. Yeah, how we can follow it.
December 28th is the fourth Wednesday between Christmas and New Year's.
Well, so who made the recommendation of possibly having a discussion of meeting dates?
I suggested, I just, from being on a lot of different boards, and I know what happens this time of year.
Why don't we do it now, since we already know that one meeting's the day before Thanksgiving, the other one's between Christmas and New Year's? Maybe we want to move them now. And then we'll be coming up against that problem. And if they have to, if they ultimately get canceled, so be it, but at least we are prepared.
Right, we do like second Wednesdays? Is that good? So what,
Or just-
right, so what kind of flexibility do you have to keep it on a Wednesday?
Very
Well,
good.
it's usually the third Wednesday is a free Wednesday. But in November, that's the lead, that's the lead municipality.
What you may want to look at in November is Thanksgiving's relatively early. I think the 29th is the fifth weeknight, it's a Monday. 30th is,
30th is a Wednesday.
There is
oh, it's
there's a
28th.
Wednesday.
That's a perfect date.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do
So that's what you want to target, and then December, quite down free on the third Wednesday, so if you want to move it up a week to the 21st, I can do the 21st. I don't want to.
Was that the week
Another, the second, yeah, the second one.
I hear you. November 21st is a Monday.
No, that's September up there. You're looking at September.
Oh, I'm sorry. My fault. Yes, that's a good date too.
Well, December 1st would be following for me.
Fifth Wednesday for November and third Wednesday for December.
You just gotta check with Tony.
They have to get to some first.
30th, I thought we were going earlier. Yeah, we were going earlier, 23rd, right? Don't you say?
Right, but then that was something to November, the third.
No.
What was the third Wednesday in November?
I think it's actually is the league of
The league,
Oh, that's the
The league
league.
is
it's 16th.
Oh,
Everybody's gonna be around.
You won't have anybody around.
Then that's the 16th and the next is the 23rd?
And that's one of the Thanksgiving.
Right, so then the one after that is the 30th?
Yeah.
So, all right, so it's
Usually do.
10:30, and then what will the date be, in 11?
And 12/21.
And 12/21. No, where's 11?
Good, you just gotta check with
Oh,
Tony.
sorry, 11/30 and 12/21.
11:30, 12/31, when is October's meeting?
That's regularly.
That's regular, we're not changing that.
Wednesday.
All right, so that's staying the same, all right.
It may change on the discussion depending on what coordinator comes in with, so.
All right, because that's what I should put this in the paper, right? if we can.
We'll
I'll have to confirm, I'll send y'all the professionals and confirm availability.
Okay,
And I'll wait a little while before I put it in the paper and do something.
thank you.
now hypothetically, if we don't have the discussion next meeting, we might not. Is it still possible to give us the handouts?
I'm gonna shoot for that date, whether you hear me that night or not. I mean, that, you know, if not, because if you give me another week, I'll give you a week.
Other than ask for audience, public comment. Oh, okay.
And Mr. Fryer indicated, I think, 2 council meetings ago, that the planning board sent a letter to the Department of Transportation to the last traffic conditions.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
And,
No, I'll wait there. I'm sorry. It was written, it's correspondence.
I know, is that possible that, I don't know what was written like, and since it's being done on the planning board, we have.
Planning board.
No, it wasn't done on.
No, it was the council. It's the
It
council.
wasn't in the planning board's jurisdiction, that's why it was done at council meeting. It's, I mean, I don't object if anybody who wants a copy, Beth, we just send it out. But it wasn't done on the planning
Oh,
board.
that's what he indicated.
Basically, they asked the state to do a greater review, to go all the way to 78, and all that.
I sent a letter. I was copied on an Opus response to DOT that basically said, I'm confused. And then I responded to DOT to that letter.
So when we were concerned in regards to traffic, these issues you have to put forward to.
Yes. Yes,
All
we
right,
did.
great. Awesome.
It wasn't that we were told that since the planning board had no jurisdiction, that we had no authority to do anything, but the municipal government does have an authority to do that, question would be did along with Greenwich.
Yeah, I didn't see anything from Greenwich. Hobart did. Hobart did. I don't see Greenwich did.
Just, I was just gonna walk.
If they did, I didn't see it. I did see, we all saw Paul's.
She's never had a chance at the public transportation back to the top, whatever we submitted.
I think we got a wishy-washy letter back that said, thanks for your letter, or something like that.
Yeah, basically something like that. But
Thank you so much.
No commitments.
No, I think, yeah. This one's the first letter or the follow-up letter? That's the,
This is the, first one.
that's the first one, okay. I read it, and I thought it was well written, and I'm glad you got this, what's over, so. Thank you.
Then he responded to this, and there was a rebuttal, a short rebuttal. Well, you have it here. I'm the principal of the developer. And,
Yeah, it's all back.
and,
Letter from the township, I thought was well done.
and then I don't know, there was a follow-up there, which everybody can, certainly. No, not really.
there is a,
I mean, I think it's fair to say he has to negotiate. He submitted a document to the council. He was waiting for a mayor's letter recommending we execute the document. It was that document. The document itself also, at the same time, I believe, approved the financial agreement. And we just tabled the, right?
The last one.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
That doesn't affect our site, and I'm speaking just based on what I know. It had to do with Phil he was bringing in.
Oh, yeah.
Over contaminated Phil.
From another state.
And,
This from a planning board perspective, now that we've granted the general development plan, and they start doing it,
We haven't granted that.
well, we gave them the general,
no, he can't do anything yet.
but they start bringing.
No, not on our site.
Oh, okay. Because I really confused me, I heard,
It's on P-Burks. I remember 3/4 of the project is in P-Burks.
right, okay. And I was like, hey, I didn't see anything come back to the board. Really? You will see stuff.
You're gonna see the preliminary site plan,
Okay.
when he's ready.
And according
One
to
of
the
the-
schedule, it sounded like Lopatcong was going to be first. Right.
Well, see, that's the problem. When I hear that there are
If we ever sign something with them, you know.
quantities of fill coming in on the Phillipsburg side, from 200,000 cubic yards to 600,000 cubic yards. That was the fill that was supposed to come from the first building in Lopatcong that has the 42-foot cup in order for that building to be level to the topography of the property. And that fill was supposed to go where this contaminated fill is coming in. So what's that do to the Lopatcong building? Will it ever get built?
Okay.
Something to contemplate.
Yeah.
So if he's just sitting there and not doing anything, pushing anything for a redevelopment program at Lopat, he's perfectly willing, they've already signed off in Hillsburg for them to go ahead and start redeveloping the property. I believe he's in there now tearing the buildings. He's closed off all the roadways.
Right.
So what's ever going on in there, I would think that he's probably looking at a substantial amount of scrap metal. And if he's taking that fill that's coming in there, and it is contaminated fill, I'm sure he's being paid to dispose of it. So if it's 600,000 yards and it's going $14, $15 million, he's going to pocket just by bringing that fill in.
Well, I gotta say, we don't know that for a fact.
Well, no.
There's stories
You know.
that.
I don't know.
Well, but so, again, I can kind of focus on what I can expect here is we wouldn't have seen demolition permits if there was anything being demolished on the one side. But if there were,
That's fine. We're a farm. We're a farm. The only thing on there is.
I know, but it's hypothetical. If the planning board wouldn't see a demolition. Right, that's the work with construction. And that's what I thought, I'm like, well, they're at the other end, and even with, if they were just grading, would grading come? Would we have to approve a grading plan, or have we already?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when the soil comes to Lopatcong, that can only happen
When it comes to the planning,
once the grading plan comes to the plan.
well, it goes through the redevelopment. It's a different animal from a normal property to the classified redevelopment property.
So we won't see it.
But we'll see it.
Okay.
It comes to the planning.
Okay. Yeah, I was confused about that, so I think I can hear the activity on that. We haven't seen anything. Okay.
It's sure possible they could build the road access to 22 already, we haven't been on a property except for that road.
That
The road's gonna come to us for site plan.
But we need to see.
Yeah, but
But that would be.
to answer your question,
They spent $5 million for that.
they could get approval for the road and never build the Lopat building. That's a possibility.
Well, the environmental center was part of the
The general development plan.
Right.
But I mean,
They have no approval.
Right,
They have a concept.
right.
they could come in with a site plan just for the access road. They don't have to build it. Right now,
Very interesting.
Yeah, the phasing.
as part of the financial agreement, the council can put other things in it, but they don't have a financial agreement.
Roads built, so, the edge.
One of the, probably want to avoid is just granting them authority to build the intersection.
We're still in session, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, as soon as he bangs the gavel, we'll let him leave. We don't have these,
No, but
this wealth of information.
All right, any further business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?